Welcome to Produce Talks.
This whole business is based on relationship and friendships.
Food is darn simple.
What can we do? What are other countries doing?
How important it is for industry to be talking about this.
We're going back to the farm. We're going back to the whole food.
Hi, I'm Wally Burns, the Education and Training Manager at CPMA. CPMA would like to acknowledge Nature Fresh Farms as our Produce Talks series sponsor. Find out more about Nature Fresh Farms and how they are growing for a kinder future at www.naturefresh.ca. You can keep up with them on Instagram or Twitter at nature_fresh and on Pinterest at naturefresh, along with other social media. Today, we are very pleased to have CPMA President Ron Lemaire chat with past Chair of CPMA Mario Masellis of Catania Worldwide, and current Chair Colin Chapdelaine of the Star Group. This is our Produce Talks annual Between the Two Chairs special, and they share stories of their diversified background and how they encourage young professionals to get more involved in the industry. They also discuss the education of our members on the best practices in sustainability, and they look forward to our next annual convention and trade show in Vancouver in April 2024. In addition, we are very pleased to add a new segment to each of our monthly episodes called Industry Insights. It's a short segment of about 5 to 7 minutes of current information that will help provide you with timely updates to help in your business. This month, we'll hear from Mike Mauti, who is CPMA's consumer guru, with some statistics from the Canadian consumer market. Stay to the end of this episode to hear Mike's insights.
Thanks, Wally. I'm really excited to be here with Mario and Colin. You know what, guys? Maybe we can kick things off and you can explain a little bit about your work history, a little bit about yourselves for the audience. Mario, let's start with you.
Well, good morning, Ron. Good morning, Colin. A little bit of myself. Wow. It's been a long, almost 30 years in the industry. It doesn't feel long. It's been a wonderful experience. Started out in the wholesale, produce industry down at the Ontario Food Terminal. And as my current boss says to me, I plucked you out of the den of iniquity of the Ontario Food Terminal and been working with Catania Worldwide now as Vice President of Sales and Marketing for the last 20 years with the company.
Listen, you know what, though? The food terminal, Mario, it's probably the best training ground for any produce person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Colin, how about you?
Well, good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for having me. A little about myself. I don't quite have 30 years as Mario has in the industry. And in Vancouver, we don't have a food terminal, but we do have a Vancouver street market, which is the closest thing to the terminal. So I guess a little about myself. I grew up in Saskatchewan in the grain belt. I come from the small town of Weyburn, Saskatchewan, where I grew up and did my education, and then moved up to do my university degrees in Saskatoon at the University of Saskatchewan, and that's really where Star Produce is from. So Star Produce, I'm one of these guys that has the privilege to have worked for the same company his whole career. Star Produce, the Star Group based in Saskatoon. When I joined it, it was about 10 years old. And so I really got to be there for a lot of the growth and be a part of a lot of the growth of the company over the last almost 25 years. Star is a Western Canadian based importer, exporter, grower, shipper, packer, wholesaler with operations throughout Western Canada, in Mexico, and in the US as well. So we cover a lot of bases. I started in the late 90s in a number of roles, basically in sales. I did the field tomato business and ran the tomato deal, running the repack divisions. And then I moved into a role in operations where I was the SVP of operations. And I got to be exposed to the food safety and the IT and the logistics and the warehousing side of the business, which kind of helped round me out in terms of my career experience. And then in 2015, I took on the role of president of BC Hot House, which was a big greenhouse operator and marketing company that Star had acquired a few years earlier. So, BC Hot House growing tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers. Star wanted to get into the greenhouse strawberry business, and I started to focus on that intently. So for the last few years, I've been president of the berry division at Star, focusing specifically on greenhouse strawberries.
You know what, Colin, listening to some of that, I kind of laugh because people don't think of produce in the middle of Canada and, basically in the grain belt and a lot of canola, and everything but produce, right?
Yeah, Saskatoon is unique because the time zones between the eastern markets and the western markets, we used to get up early, 5-6 o'clock in the morning, so we could find out what the markets were doing on the East Coast to be able to price our Western-based customers before they got in. So they'd get in at 7-8 o'clock in the morning, and they'd already have a price list on what was coming, for sale. So Saskatoon is a unique place. It's also a great place for people. Saskatoon has a great university, great hardworking young people that aren't scared to get up. We like to hire farm kids because they're not scared to work. And Saskatoon has really been a great place for Star to be headquartered and to grow from.
Well, you know what, guys? I always have a great opportunity to learn a little bit more about the chairs at CPMA, and I always find it interesting to see where people came from. And Mario, your university and education wasn't produce specific either. I know your focus was a little different. It's not produce may not have been the career you were thinking about at the very front end.
Absolutely not. Ron, it was kind of funny. You and I have similar backgrounds with our university educations, that we were very interested in politics and economics. In fact, before economics and politics, I was supposed to be a doctor. I've always wanted to be a physician, to help people and to follow in my uncle's footsteps. And after a year and a half of the pre-med program at the University of Toronto, I realized, wow, that there was actually work involved in becoming a doctor. So I
so left, you got into produce. There's no work involved in produce.
No, not whatsoever, but a little different. But I kind of, took a back 6 months off and then went back into university. I took 3 part-time courses. I took economics, political science, and psychology. And I went, wow, this economics and political science thing is kind of really grabbing my interest. So I did a double major in that, and then went back and got a master's degree in political economy, and studying international economies and international trade and the politics involved with getting all these trade agreements done. So I really fell in love with politics and international trade. And so right out of university, I was working for a commodity trading company. And we were selling hot and cold rolled steel, aluminum ingots, diamonds, and just basically putting buyer and seller together globally. And someone put a file on my desk and say, hey, listen, and this was right around 89, 90 when the Berlin Wall came down and there was no food in Russian supermarkets. I don't know if you got, Colin, I know you can't remember that far back, but
come on.
there was anyway. My boss just came on my desk one day. I was a junior guy, and he says, "Okay, we need chicken and oranges." And I said, "Well, go to the supermarket and get them. What do you want from me?" He said, "No. We need this for this company that's just sent us $1 million LC line of credit in our bank, and we've got 30 days to fulfill this." And I went, "Oh, okay." So I went down to the Ontario Food Terminal. And I started, where do they get their oranges from? And oranges to California. Sunkist was the big label at the time, and followed them back. And I actually made a deal with Sunkist, but the transport from California to Russia was like $9 a box. And so that wasn't, commercially feasible. And I was speaking to my dad at dinner and telling him about my day. And he looked at me and says, you're pretty dumb for a guy who's smart. And I went, well, what do you mean? He says, well, my sister, your aunt in Italy, runs one of the largest packing houses of citrus in southern Italy. Well, I didn't even know southern Italy grew oranges. And so, long story short, the next week I was on a plane to Italy with my family, and we made a deal in about 10 days, and we were shipping truckloads of oranges from Italy to Russia. While I was there, I noticed these little clementines, and I said, hey, I think I can sell these back in Toronto. So I brought some samples back with me. Of course, didn't tell Border Services that I was bringing fruit back in, but that's another conversation. And I went down the Ontario Food Terminal, and I went down to a couple of houses, and they looked at it and said, wow, these clementines taste amazing. Where are they from? Spain? Morocco? No, Italy. And they learned something. Anyway, I started selling, and I brought my first 2 or 3 containers there, and that's how the story started.
And I know, Colin, you're in a little bit of the same boat. Your university path was different also.
Yeah, I mean, I did my international studies and my master's in business at the U of S. And a funny story, I was going to either be in banking or a commodities trader or in something related to finance. And, I got a call one day from David Karwacki, who's the CEO and owner of the Star Group, and said, hey, I want to meet you for lunch. And that led to my career in produce. My very first PMA was that year. We went to Atlanta, and I happened to run into 2 colleagues from my graduating class. And one was working for Goldman Sachs, and another had an environmental engineering company, really high level guys. And I was always very involved with the university and the school and the student council. And they said, wow, Colin, great to see you. What are you doing? Fully expecting me to be in like some position with the banking industry or something. And Leo Barabo at the time, who was with me, said, he sells radishes. And I said, yep, I'm selling radishes. And you know what? It's been the best time ever selling radishes. Of course, we don't just sell radishes. We sell everything. But, that story always stuck with me because produce is much more than that. It involves every aspect of business, whether it be accounting and finance, logistics, IT. There's so many facets, and being exposed to all of them has been a real reward in my career.
Yeah, and I think you both pinned it right on the head. It comes back, and this is what we're trying to share with a lot of these young professionals coming either into the industry or thinking about it. Right? There's no straight line in the produce, but diversified background makes a world of difference in success. Mario, so you've wrapped your year up as chair. You had all sorts of different curves. We were still dealing with supply chains. Food inflation was extremely high. But boy, we persevered. Association had a good year. Industry navigated the challenges. What do you see as some of your major accomplishments, and what are you proud of during your time as chair?
The thing that comes to mind right away is, and because we're still going through this, is Bill C-280, and how as an association together, we were able to champion behind all of the differences of well, I don't know how to even say this properly, but the lack of protection for our growers in Canada. And Bill C-280 and obviously with Scott Davidson, MP Scott Davidson, and his being a champion of this, standing behind him and getting it through Parliament and understanding how government works through this was a very proud moment. Getting Canadians aware of where food comes from, I was always shocked about that, Ron. And you and I talked about that at length as to, how little Canadians still know where their food comes from. So the education piece is very important. A lot of things come to mind.
So, you started your year off and looking at how do we support and build the market. Labor has been a challenge, and we talked a lot about diversity and inclusion, making sure we can make our industry as open as possible to get as many people into it. I think you've been successful in some of the activities, at least getting greater awareness within our industry and our organization.
Well, we've been so focused on ourselves for many years as looking outside of the box. And when we look at ourselves in our industry, even our board of directors, and people are saying, well, okay, you have a few women, you have a few ethnic minorities, but not enough to really understand why. Because Canadians were a very diverse cultural pot, and we're not a melting pot. We actually like to maintain our cultures that we've adopted. I mean, being of Italian background, people ask you, are you Canadian or are you Italian? Well, I feel a little bit of both. I'm a proud Canadian. I was born here, but I grew up in an Italian household. So that's one aspect. But we've got, I don't know, 50 or 60 different cultures just in the city of Toronto, let alone across Canada. And we need to include everyone in order to be a properly represented association and board of directors and industry.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a long, winding road to get to. I think where we all think we need to go, and you know what? That leads in, Colin. I know you've been involved with CPMA for many years. You know, you've been part of the organizing of our convention, our focus on sustainability, our plastics work, involved in our technical committee, our leadership committee, our executive. As you come into the role of chair, what do you think your top 2 or 3 areas of focus are going to be, and where do you see things hitting the industry?
Wow. I mean, first off, sustainability jumps to mind instantly, because it's a big one. ESG and sustainability, it's so important to our industry, and I think educating our membership about why we need to do this. Why is it important that we focus on this? It's, our customers are asking us to do this. So we're going to get dragged through and dragged into it. And we need to look at best practices and see how we can get, properly focused as an industry so that we don't have a repeat of the food safety launch back in, 15 years ago or 18 years ago, when food safety came out. You needed 6 different audits from 6 different customers, and it was just chaos. So I think sustainability and best practices around that, identifying is a big one. Driving innovation. Innovation is something Oline Smethurst, as chair, really started to focus on. And these issues that we see before us are big issues. They're not going to be solved in 1 year. But we need to start them and we need to build on them. So those would be a couple of the things, Ron, that I would say I want to build on and focus.
So, between the two of you, Mario, you've gone through the chair now, and I know maybe people do realize the amount of time, and especially now that travel started again, and the investment from a volunteer side that the chair puts in, as well as our executive committee members. But is there any tip or advice you can give Colin as he ramps up for his year ahead?
We've had several discussions before Colin became chair of the CPMA, and I think I sensed a little bit of hesitation and maybe a little bit of nervousness, like what's really involved. Colin, you're going to be more than and well prepared to take on this role, as you've already started and you've hit the ground running. We stay in tune, as I know you always are, but in the total industry, not just in your section of it. You will be asked for comments, both political and industry-wide, as to where we're going with this. A lot of the questions that I took on as CPMA chair was, what does CPMA do for me? Well, I really couldn't. I could answer that question being up, through the executive, and I've been on the board, but you really get a true understanding of the inner workings and the day-to-day work that CPMA does when you're chair. So take it all in, listen, be very focused on the industry, and enjoy it. Enjoy it because it'll be the most rewarding year as an industry person of your life and of your career. And then from there, enjoy it because it'll be gone in a flash. Before you know it, the year will be over and we're having your convention in Vancouver and all of a sudden you'll be, what? And Ron doesn't call you as much anymore. There's a little bit of withdrawal there. Wait, is he okay? Wait, let me check in. Yeah, he's fine.
You're still one of the favorite chairs I've ever had, Mario.
Yeah, you'll hear that. You'll hear that a lot this year, Colin.
So you know what, guys? It's funny you mentioned about the benevolence and the volunteerism that we see. And I think let's talk a little bit about that because you're right. CPMA, it's one of those things that I always like to say, if you don't know we're doing something, sometimes it's all the stuff behind the scenes that's really driving the business. And the volunteer engagement is driving and supporting that. But the world is changing. Are you guys seeing a shift in, younger people volunteering? And what do we need to do to try and, bring some of those younger people around the table so they can really get the benefit? Because there is a lot of benefit from being part of the CPMA organization, being engaged. And I guess from your experiences, you guys have been in the system now as a volunteer for, together over almost, I think, close to 30 years if we add the two of you together in time. What is it that we have to give to the young professionals to really get them engaged? What are they looking for, do you think?
I'll start, Colin. It's curiosity. They need. I always am excited when I hear a young person in the industry asking me questions, and I don't care what question it is, but asking me just general questions, specific questions, personal questions. Like, they ask, "How do I get involved in CPMA?" Because they see that and they just want to know. So get them involved in committee stages. Identify what their interest is within the industry and then guide them to that. So their curiosity is stay curious. I always say to these young people, because no one really goes to school and says, well, unless you're going to the University of Guelph in agriculture, no one goes to school for this industry.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you nailed it. I get emails frequently from within our organization of people asking, how do I get involved with CPMA? How do I get on a committee? And I think the desire is there to do it. Channeling them into the right committee, as Mario said, is important. And then, these things can be daunting. I remember my first meeting when I walked in and sat down and all of these acronyms and terms, and you feel a little bit like an imposter in the beginning. You have imposter syndrome where, should I be here with all of these smart people? Yeah. But getting involved, getting in on your first meeting, so important. And I think there's an enormous amount of people that want to be involved with the CPMA and the committees. I just see that now more than ever.
Maybe it's our responsibility to I always say it's our responsibility as the elder statesman now, God forbid I say that, but we need to recognize who those people are and get them involved.
Absolutely, Mario. Joining a committee like CTAC with all of the terms, or CGIM with there's a lot of really complex issues that are discussed. So, helping people along, introducing these things, not as that you should know this, that let's do a little background on what this issue is so people understand it, because it doesn't take much, just a little bit of an introduction to the topic. And sometimes we sit in these meetings and it's like, you should know this already, so we get right into the business. But for younger people starting out, giving them a little help up, I think would be important.
Spot on. Yeah. So
let's talk a little bit about that, because I think corporate culture plays a big factor. And I know when I started in the industry, there was a cultural approach within many businesses to enabling their staff to be involved. How have you seen corporate culture play a role here? And Colin, here's an example. You've been with the same company since the beginning of your career. That's uncommon now. And I think the culture plays a big fact in keeping you there.
100%. I mean, they say that culture trumps strategy. So you can have the best plan, You can have the best strategic focus. You can have the best consultants help you with designing what to do. But if you don't have the culture to drive that, forget it. You're never gonna succeed. So building a strong culture where you've got the clear values, where you've got consistent communication. I mean, people want to know what the mission is. They will back the mission if they know what it is, and respect for people, opportunities to advance. These are all things that people want. They want to know, hey, I can get to the chair Colin's sitting in if I do X, Y, and Z. And we encourage that. We encourage that people step outside their box, push forward, take on things that they're not used to, and just jump in. And ultimately, the people that do rise within our company and have great careers and really embrace the culture.
So, Mario, going from Star Produce model, where it's a complex group of companies, to a family-run business. Similar thoughts from your side?
Well, the basic general thought that Colin, he hit it on the head there, that it's the culture. Maybe some of the inner workings are a little different when you have a large multi-company company like Star, but a family-run company is I have a direct tunnel to the boss, the owner, the CEO, and the CFO. They're all together, so we can make decisions quickly. We can make decisions that are obviously to the president's vision, and we can talk about it. So for that, it is quite different. And though we do operate as a very large company, we've got locations, 3 locations now in the United States, in Texas, New Jersey, and California, and in Mexico. So we're an international company as well. The corporate culture, yeah, Colin, you hit it right on the head, is the most important thing. If you buy into it and you give them the opportunity to spread their wings and really bring out their individuality within a group, you'd be surprised what comes up. It's really good. I mean, I'm a perfect example of that, because he took me green 20 years ago and he said, okay, here's your opportunity, go. And I brought projects to him. So he was very open-minded with that. Getting involved in the industry around the world, because we're such a global dynamic group. We just don't grow carrots and onions in Bradford or in Saskatchewan or in Vancouver. It's bringing all that fruit in together, and he allowed me to think outside the box. So it's a wonderful way to work.
So you mentioned that cultural mosaic in Canada, Mario, and it really does make our produce business different, right? And the expectation now from Canadians on providing them the fruit or vegetable that they're used to, no matter what part of the world they come from.
Yeah. Who remembered blueberries in January?
Yeah.
Oranges back 40 years ago were a treat around Christmas time. We never had that now we're getting oranges 365 days a year from Argentina, Uruguay, South Africa, California, Spain, Morocco. That was unheard of less than a lifetime ago. So we're constantly, but now we're getting these exotic fruits that lychee, granadillos. Most Canadians don't know that unless they've tried them, but it's becoming more and more of an accepted, as we are, the catalyst to bringing these fruits in. Why do we bring them in? We don't bring them in because we're just trying to test the market. There's a demand for them. People want a taste of home.
Yeah. I have a question then on how the market is going to grow. When we start looking at the difference of where we are today, and I remember when I started, everyone was talking about, the big corporate farm and the concern about consolidation at retail. And now there's a bigger discussion on consolidation on the supply side. Private equity is looking at our industry very closely and already driving change and supporting with additional capital and building big structure around our food system. How do you see all these pieces connecting today? And is it good? Is it bad? Where are the opportunity domestically and globally?
wow, we certainly see an influx of capital into the greenhouse sector, where there's been a consolidation and a real drive to consolidate down to, probably 4 or 5 players in the greenhouse sector, massive players. And if you're a small grower, you have to join them, or you probably won't last. So you need to be a part of a larger entity, because what's happening is they're driving prices down, buying up contracts, and creating an environment where you need to be efficient. And that's why innovation, you're either really good at what you do or you're really specialized. And so I see, for the small guys, I see it as almost a negative thing unless they get organized and figure out what to do next. Being specialized is a good thing too. I mean, we've looked to get into the strawberry business and the lettuce. We're in the lettuce business, specialized, because competing on some of the commodities where the margins are razor thin, just doesn't cut it. So on the other side, on the flip side, capital allows us to be better. I mean, it allows us to put in better facilities. It allows us to automate. We see labor as a huge problem, and automation costs money. If you're going to automate a facility, you need a technical team, you need specialized equipment, and you need that to get the edge on the price. So, it's the world never stops. It's always changing. So to be nostalgic about how it was, I think the genie's out of the bottle. I think the future is going to be different, and you just need to determine how you're going to be a part of that.
Mario, you've had a chance to travel on building on that. Have you seen that type of approach globally, or is it unique to Canada?
No, that approach is globally. My first question when I saw the trend happening is, why is all this equity money coming now into agriculture? We didn't have this. Did you remember this, Ron, 10, 15 years ago?
Not at all.
So now the money is being attracted. So my question always to them is, why? Why now? Food has always been a necessity. The distribution, wholesale, retail, food service has always been around. But why now? Is it the importance? Is it that they've run out of other places to invest in? So now they're, okay, we got nothing else to invest in, we'll invest in that. I don't know. I think they finally realized how important agriculture is, and how it's changing, and how we need to feed the world. And if we can do it efficiently, and of course we can do it in a profitable way. My concern with all this money coming in is this: why do we? It's all numbers with these companies. If you're not producing the product, all that. I always say that the funniest comment is, how do you make a small fortune in the produce industry? You start with a large one. There's always challenges, and not every year is making money. So how do we change that? How do we speak to these large amounts of money coming in, saying, hey, not every year is going to be a profitable year? That's some of the concern I have.
Not every year, not every week, not every month. It's funny. A greenhouse grower once told me, he says, yeah, well, you know what? The cucumber market's terrible today, but wait till next week.
Yeah.
So turbulence, right? Change. This is what the business is all about. What can you see then, if we are, as an organization, here to support and drive business, be a catalyst for change for our industry? What do you guys feel in the next, 3 years? We're just going to launch our 2024 strategic plan. What do you think we as an organization can do to help businesses, help our members sustain themselves and grow? Any thoughts?
You merge the challenges the industry's facing with that question. The first off is the high price of everything, the inflation, and we want Canadians to be eating more fruits and vegetables, not less. And right now that trend is going backwards. So I think for our membership in the CPMA is we need to work very hard to get the message out, maintain the positive consumption patterns that we've had. We spent decades building that, and we can't allow the high prices to stop that. Canadians and the health of Canadians depend on that. So I think the association needs to really promote the consumption of fruits and vegetables, like we've been doing with Half Your Plate, Fresh 20, and all that stuff to show the value.
You're bang on. And you know what? I know, Mario, back to the regulatory side. The regulatory levers that we may need to help drive some of that support is key too, right?
Yes. I always say we have to justify what we're asking for. And when COVID hit, Ron, we always talked about how, the government was just going to shut the border. And how little our government knew about the distribution of fruits and vegetables. And the public said, well, okay, fine, we're going to shut the border. Well, how are you going to eat? And all the hoops that we had to run. And basically we knew what was going on, but we had to educate and make people aware. Why are they paying what they're paying for the food, Colin? Are they justified in asking for more prices? The grower needs to get paid. If they're not growing the food, or it can't make it at a profitable level, why would they do that? And so we finally have to constantly educate them.
You saw that in the UK with the berry producers stopping when the retailers would not pay, or held them to the contract prices. They actually had to stop because they were well below their cost of production. And inflation's real, and growers are feeling it. Margins are thin in farming, and these shocks, if they can't be buffeted somehow, they're going to really impact and have been impacting bottom lines of farmers. So we need to be careful, because food security, it matters.
Yes, absolutely.
And for their listeners, so I'm fortunate enough to sit on a global coalition, and we have a survey that's just coming back talking about the cost impacts from grower, packer, shipper to wholesale. It's quite interesting, some of the data showing that, the last 2 years, we've all heard fertilizer. In Canada, growers have seen a 41%, the entire system has seen a 41% increase on fertilizer. Electricity, 24% increase in costs. Fuel and gas, 47%. And you can just go down the list of all the key inputs to get product on the plates of Canadians. So it's interesting. And I know we don't have an answer today, but how far do you push the cost through, and what level will the consumer accept on the price of food and the price of produce? As we see inflation decline, produce prices remain high. And talking to survey respondents and industry members, they're all saying end of 2024 if we're lucky. Is that what you guys are hearing out there on change?
Yeah, I'm hearing that at least the end of 2024, when food prices will stabilize. Basically, all prices will stabilize, and the supply chain damage that we've all been inflicted with during COVID will come back to a normal rate. I don't know how quickly we can adjust back to pre-COVID prices, if that's even possible. But yeah, I've heard that at least to the end of 2024.
Mm-hmm. During COVID too, there was uncertainty on getting your grower supplies, whether it be fertilizer, growing medium, whatever. And people stocked up. They bought extra because they knew that it might take 6 months longer to get your koya from Holland, or your grow bags or whatever. And so these things caused everybody to buy more and put it in their storage room, and they're chewing through that, and it's still it's high priced inventory that they're using up. So to say the end of 2024, I think is light. I think there's going to be guys that are going to be, I'm hopeful, Ron, but I think high prices are with us for a while, and passing on the costs that the growers are sustaining, it must happen. If it doesn't happen, then they'll cease to exist.
Yeah, we can't have that. The system's too fragile still. So on a optimistic, way to wrap this discussion up is we're going to be traveling a little bit. Colin, you and I are heading down to Australia, talk a little bit about some supply chain opportunities, issues, and see where the Australian market can support as we go towards your Vancouver convention. How big is the Australian market in Canada right now? Like, are we bringing a lot of citrus, a lot of product in?
We're bringing some product from Australia. The pears, oranges. The problem they have right now is a logistics problem. The number of days on the water versus coming out of other Southern Hemisphere areas towards North America. So Peru particularly is faster than coming from Australia. So, there's challenges everywhere. They have high priced labor too that they're dealing with. So they're passing that on. And so they're trying to keep a lot of their production in the Asian sphere, up in their own sector. But for years we have been importing Aussie citrus. Over the years, it has declined though because of basically logistics is one of the reasons, and market.
Well, it's always change out there, right? Always change. So, guys, before we wrap up, are there any closing thoughts that either of you want to share with our listeners? A little bit about the association, a little bit about your experience, a little bit about what you see happening in 2023.
I think the trend that we're on right now is a positive trend. I feel very confident. I felt very confident in handing over the chairmanship to Colin. I think we're in a good position. I think under Colin's leadership, we're going to continue to promote our industry, not only within our own country, but around the world. Hence your trip to Australia, I think is very important to stand up for Canada and to stand up for the industry within Canada and, forward thinking, making sure that we're sustainable. I think that's going to be your greatest accomplishment, Colin, is the sustainability piece of our industry. So good luck to you. Enjoy your travels, and I think you're doing an amazing job.
Well, thanks very much, Mario. I appreciate the vote of confidence, and I'm really excited to take the role on. I want to say a shout out to our CEO David Karwacki for his support. And Mario, you mentioned this at the convention in Toronto. How without Paul Catania's support, you couldn't have done it.
No, and exactly.
I feel the same way, David, allowing me, to really focus on the CPMA this year and to drive forward with all of the good things, the good work that the industry needs and it's doing. So very excited about that. So yeah, I think that's it. I see sustainability, just to conclude, as something we need to focus in on. Like I said, this is about how do we do more with less and do it better, better for the planet, better tasting, better yielding, creating a better value for consumers. These are all things that we need to continually be striving for. So I'm excited to help frame that and work towards a sustainability model that I think our members can look to and help guide them.
I tell you, I think that's going to be fundamental without a doubt. And you know what? Another big piece of all this is, as we started during Mario's term with the pandemic loosening up and markets opening again, a big part of our global strategy is making sure people know Canada is open for business. So listeners may not know, but right out of the convention, Mario, Colin, and I, we were in Morocco and Spain talking with exporters about opportunities for the Canadian market and how to do business. As mentioned, Colin and I are going to shoot down to Australia, but then also domestically, we're running our town halls across the country to build awareness and understanding how effective Canadian companies can be in developing their own market. So all leading us towards Vancouver next April, which will be a outstanding event. I know Toronto was a home run. Vancouver is really shaping up already to be another sold out trade show, and a lot of interest from the buying community to coming out and seeing the world and seeing Canada all in one spot. So guys, with that, I just want to thank you so much for being part of Produce Talks and our conversation between two chairs. Mario, you're almost off the hook. You got one more year to go as past chair and a little bit more work. And Colin, it's going to be an exciting year. Get your travel bag ready, and we'll see each other on the road.
You bet. Very excited. And Mario, thanks for your contributions in the past year, and look forward to the support going forward.
My pleasure. Anytime. You've got my number. Call me. If Ron gets out of line, you give me a call. I'll tell you how to deal with that.
I'll be ringing off the hook, Mary.
No, it's all good. But good luck in your travels, gentlemen. Look forward to seeing you in Calgary and Vancouver for the town hall, and the best is yet to come, Colin.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, gentlemen.
For the last few years, CPMA has made a significant effort to get to know the Canadian produce consumer better. After all, where would we be without the people who actually buy the products offered by our members? To celebrate these efforts, we're adding a new segment to our podcast series called Industry Insights. Each month, we'll hear from experts like Mike Mauti, CPMA's own consumer guru, who will provide our listeners with just a taste of what we've learned about Canadian consumers this month. So welcome, Mike. We're always very interested to hear what the Canadian produce consumer has to say. What did you learn this month?
Thanks a lot, Wally. I'm very happy to be back. There's lots to learn about the Canadian produce customer. Last month, we talked about produce inflation and some of the unique strategies that Canadian consumers were putting forth in order to combat inflation. This month, we peeled the layer of the onion back a little bit, and we're going to deep dive into the types of products that Canadian consumers are leaving at the grocery store. And then, what better time to take a deeper dive into local produce than the month of June? So we're going to take a look at that and what we've learned this month, that it's all about location, location, location.
That's interesting, Mike. What products are consumers avoiding buying?
Well, no surprise. The types of products that consumers are buying the most are the products that they're most likely to leave behind at the grocery store. So specifically, we're talking about meat products, produce products, and seafood products. But it's not felt the same way across the country. There are some regional differences. For example, consumers in the Atlantic provinces are avoiding seafood a little bit more than they're avoiding produce. And when you get into the province of Quebec, we're seeing that not only does seafood rank ahead of produce, but so too does bakery, deli meat, and deli cheese. I guess what we're learning here is when you're in Quebec, don't mess with produce. But also we're finding that discount shoppers are more likely to cut back on seafood products and deli meat products. So while produce is the number 2 department to stay away from, there are pockets across the country where there are other products that are more likely to be left on the grocery shelves.
So tell us more about local produce and location.
So we found that over half of the Canadian population defines local in terms of the 100-kilometer diet. And 1/3 of these people favor proximity over provincial origin. And so if we look at that in practical terms, what that could mean is that a person who has that opinion living in Abbotsford, British Columbia, would consider cherries grown in the Mount Vernon region of Washington state to be local, whereas cherries grown in the Okanagan Valley isn't. That's quite interesting to think of, something within those provincial borders to be considered not local, whereas something across the Canadian-US border is local. What we do find, though, are those who live in Quebec are more likely to consider within their provincial border to be local. So it's stronger. The provincial pull is stronger in Quebec than in other provinces across the country.
Well, that makes sense, Mike. So what can retail stores do to ensure that the consumers know what produce is produced locally? Should they have signs or symbols to indicate the locally grown fruits and vegetables?
Well, signage always helps, and wayfinding signage in particular is quite helpful. But a big question to ask is, where do we put local in the grocery store? And as it turns out, there's pretty much a split between whether it should be in its inline location, so the same spot you can find it all year, versus putting it in an over and above disruptive type display that can stop the customer in their shop and alert them to local product. But where there is broad agreement is people do not want to see local produce displayed outside of the store in sort of a farmer's market type atmosphere. In fact, only about 6% of the population said that they preferred this type of merchandising. Now, interestingly, the youngest consumers, those aged 20 to 34, are most likely to say they prefer to see something outside. Now, the numbers aren't huge, only about 9%, representing about a 50% increase over the rest of the population, but it's still a significant clip above. And so maybe this is something that we might see become a little bit more popular in the future as these younger consumers start to grow in their purchasing capacity.
Thanks, Mike. We look forward to hearing more from you next month. Thank you, everyone. And to the listeners, thanks for listening. Remember, you can subscribe to Produce Talks at Google or Apple Podcasts and on most other podcast players. Until next time, fill half your plate with fruits and veggies, continue to seek out new knowledge, and basically never stop growing.